My FIL said I was too educated to be a good wife, and probably the reason our grandkids won't have manners. My husband just chuckled. I served dinner anyway. When they left, I cleaned up alone. 3 years later, that same FIL ended up in my university lecture hall, a guest in my class on ethics. He didn't know I'd be the one teaching. I took attendance, paused at his name, then said, "Let's talk about dignity." I never thought I'd be telling this story, but maybe it's time. I met Adam when I was 24. We were both working in Austin, Texas. I had just started teaching part-time while finishing my PhD. He was working as a project manager for a construction company. I loved that he wasn't threatened by my work, or so I thought. His parents were from a little town outside Waco, real small-town folks. I didn't judge. My own parents were working class too. The difference was my parents pushed education like it was salvation. Adam's folks? Not so much. I met his dad, Earl, at a family barbecue about 6 months into dating Adam. Earl looked me up and down like he was sizing up a cow at auction. The first thing he said to me after hello was, "You sure you're not too smart for your own good?" I laughed it off then. Thought it was just a bad first impression. It wasn't. Every holiday, every visit, Earl would toss little jabs at me. Bet you can quote a textbook, but can't cook a real meal. Or, smart girls like you never stick around long, do they? It wore me down little by little. Adam always said the same thing, he's old-fashioned. He doesn't mean anything by it. I tried to let it go. After we got married, I thought maybe things would settle down. Maybe Earl would accept me once he saw I wasn't some stuck-up know-it-all. I went out of my way to be kind to him. I learned how he liked his coffee. I always made sure to invite them over, even when I didn't feel like it. I worked full-time, managed my research, kept our house clean, cooked most nights. But it didn't matter. 6 months into our marriage, we had them over for dinner. I cooked everything from scratch. Pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans, fresh rolls. Even baked a pecan pie from a recipe Sharon, Adam's mom, had given me. Earl came in, sat down without a word of thanks, and the first thing out of his mouth was, "A woman with her nose in a book all the time can't run a home." I swallowed my pride and served him a plate anyway. The whole dinner, he kept going. Probably why the next generation's going to hell. Got women thinking they're too good for a kitchen. Then, just as he was scooping up another helping of roast, he chuckled and said, "You're probably the reason our grandkids won't have manners. Too busy teaching strangers how to act instead of raising your own right." I stared at Adam. I needed him to say something. Just one word. Instead, he laughed along, like Earl had told some harmless joke. I held it together. I smiled. I poured sweet tea. I acted like it didn't bother me. When they finally left, Adam went into the living room, grabbed his Xbox controller, and said, "You know how he is, babe. Don't let it get to you." I cleaned up alone, scraped plates, washed dishes. I remember standing over the sink, scrubbing so hard my hands hurt. I was so angry, so humiliated. I couldn't even cry. I just kept thinking. He thinks I'm less than him, and my husband thinks it's fine. I made a decision that night. I wasn't going to fight them. I wasn't going to argue. I was going to outlast them. 3 years later, I was a full-time professor, teaching 3 classes, doing research, sitting on panels. I had carved out a career that mattered to me, even when it felt like I was dragging a weight behind me at home. One of the classes I taught was called Ethics in Business and Community Leadership. It was part of a new program offering certificates to local business owners, church leaders, and council members who wanted to upskill. It wasn't fancy, but a lot of small-town folks were taking it to get an edge in local politics or to say they had higher education on their resumes. The first day of a new term, I walked into my classroom early, set up my slides, checked the roster. There it was, Earl Branson. At first, I thought it had to be another Earl Branson. It's not that rare of a name. But then I looked at the intake form. Business owner, Branson Hardware. Location, Waco area. My heart started pounding. I kept setting up, smiling, waiting. When the class started, The students filed in, a mix of middle-aged women in church dresses, older men in work boots, a few younger people trying to climb the ladder. And there he was. Earl. Sat right in the front row, chewing on the end of a blue pen. He didn't even recognize me at first. He was flipping through the syllabus like he couldn't care less. I started roll call, name after name. Then I got to his. I said it out loud, slow and clear. Earl Branson? He looked up, blinked. Our eyes locked. It took him a full 10 seconds to realize who I was. His face turned the color of boiled shrimp. I smiled, polite, professional, cold. Present, he mumbled. I marked it off without saying another word. I started the lecture. First topic of the day. Dignity. What it means to lead with it. How true leaders treat people with respect, even when they don't think they have to. How you can tell a lot about a person by how they treat people they think are beneath them. I never said his name. Never hinted at anything personal. But every time I asked the class a question about respect, or listening, or humility, I looked right at him. And every time, Earl looked down at his lap like he wanted the floor to open up and swallow him whole. After that first class, I expected Earl to drop out right away. He didn't. The next week, he came back. He sat way in the back this time, near the door. Wouldn't meet my eyes. Wouldn't answer questions. Just sat there with his arms crossed like a stubborn kid who had been forced to go to church. I figured maybe Sharon had pushed him into it. Maybe the program was tied to some local project he wanted to lead. Maybe his pride wouldn't let him quit. Whatever the reason, he stayed. And that gave me time to do something I hadn't thought I'd ever get to do. Hold him to a standard he couldn't talk his way out of. In the third class, we did group work. I split the students into teams to create mock community initiatives based on ethical leadership principles. I assigned Earl to a group of 3 women, all younger, all sharp. Earl hated it. I could see it in the way he slumped in his chair. But I made it clear, if he didn't participate, he wouldn't pass. I walked around the room as teams brainstormed. When I stopped near his group, I heard him say, "I've been running a business for 40 years. I don't need some college girl telling me how to act." I didn't react. I didn't flinch. I just leaned down, looked him in the eye, and said, "Maybe that's why you're here." The women at his table smirked. One of them, a young woman named Crystal, said, "Let's go over the assignment again. Maybe you missed something." I moved on before Earl could explode. But I saw his hands, fists so tight his knuckles turned white. Week after week, it kept building. Whenever I led discussions about leadership failures, it felt like I was dissecting him in front of the whole room, without ever saying his name. When we talked about the dangers of pride and stubbornness, I felt his stare burning into me. When we discussed the importance of adapting and respecting younger generations, he shifted in his seat like the words were thorns. One day, halfway through the course, it all finally snapped. We were deep into a case study about a small business that collapsed because the owner refused to listen to advice or change with the times. I asked the class, what happens to leaders who refuse to grow? Who think they know everything already? People tossed out answers. They lose touch. They drive good people away. They get stuck in the past. Then, from the back, Earl spoke up. Loud. They lose their damn dignity, he said. The room went dead quiet. Everyone turned around to stare at him. I kept my face blank. Calm. I said, "Exactly, Mr. Branson. Dignity isn't something you can demand. You have to earn it every day." He nodded once, almost like a bow. After that day, something in Earl changed. He stopped acting like he hated every minute of being there. He still didn't talk much, but when he did, it wasn't full of grumbling and sarcasm. It was real, and he stayed, week after week, all the way to the final presentation project. But life has a funny way of throwing one more match into a fire you thought was already out. Because the final project? It wasn't just graded by me. It was presented in front of a full panel of professors, city council members, and local business leaders, including Adam. Yep. My husband. He had signed up to be a volunteer judge for business ethics presentation night to support me. He didn't know Earl was in the class. He hadn't kept track of much about my teaching at all. The night of the presentations, when Earl saw Adam walk into the lecture hall and sit at the judge's table, his face drained of color. For the first time, I saw real fear in Earl's eyes. He wasn't just answering to me anymore. He was about to be judged by the same son who once laughed at his insults, in front of a room full of witnesses. And believe me, I wasn't about to save him. The room was packed. Students, faculty, local business owners, all here to watch the final presentations. There were refreshments at the back, people laughing and chatting, but the air around Earl was thick like smoke. I stood at the side of the room, arms folded, watching it all play out. When they called his group up, Earl and the 3 women he'd been assigned to, he moved like he was dragging chains. He avoided Adam's eyes. Avoided mine. Their project was about creating a community program that mentored young workers entering trades. It was a good idea.
Solid.
Probably the women's work more than Earl's, but he was part of it. Crystal took the lead, speaking clearly and confidently. The others followed. When it was Earl's turn to speak, he cleared his throat, shuffled his papers, and started reading off the slides. Halfway through, Adam leaned over to the other judges and whispered something. Earl caught it. His voice shook. He stumbled through the rest of the presentation, and when the panel started asking questions, it got worse. Adam, smiling a little too politely, said, "Mr. Branson, can you tell us about a time you had to change your leadership style to better serve your employees or customers?" Earl froze. He stared at the floor. Seconds passed. It got awkward. Finally, he muttered, "I always thought I was doing things the right way." Adam nodded, still polite. "And when you found out you weren't?" Another pause. The women in his group shifted nervously, trying to glance at each other without being obvious. I stayed silent at the edge of the room, watching it all unravel. Not smug, not smiling, just watching. Earl finally answered, voice rough. "I guess I hurt people when I didn't mean to. Made him feel small. Thought if I was working hard, that was enough." It wasn't a perfect answer, but it was honest. The panel moved on. The presentation ended. Earl slunk back to his seat while polite claps filled the room. Later that night, after all the scores were in and people were milling around talking, Adam came over to me. He looked at me carefully, like he was seeing me different for the first time in a long time. "You knew he was in your class," he said. I shrugged. "He signed up like anyone else." Adam didn't say anything for a minute. Then, "I didn't realize how bad he really was to you." It wasn't an apology, but it was something. Across the room, Earl stood alone near the back wall, holding a plastic cup of punch like it might burn him. He kept looking over like he wanted to come say something.
Kept not doing it.
And right then, I realized something. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It wasn't about making Earl pay, or making Adam see. It was about me knowing who I was, and never again letting them tell me otherwise. But the story didn't end there. Not even close. Because a few days later, I got a call from Sharon. And what she said changed everything. I let it go to voicemail. I wasn't in the mood to deal with Sharon's sweet, syrupy, let's all get along talk. But curiosity ate at me. So later that night, after Adam fell asleep on the couch, I listened.
Her voice was shaky.
Nervous. "Hi, sweetie. It's Sharon. I just wanted to say, Earl's been different lately. Quiet. He's not himself. He keeps saying he embarrassed himself in your class. Keeps talking about setting things right." There was a long pause. "I don't know what happened between you two exactly. I don't need to know. But he wants to talk. Said he needs to." I sat there, phone in my hand, heart hammering. He wants to talk. 3 years after tearing me down? After treating me like dirt under his boots? Part of me wanted to slam the door in his face. Another part, the smarter part, knew this was a chance. A real chance to put the mirror in front of him. Let him see every crack he'd made. The next day, I got a knock on my office door. It was Earl.
Hat in Hand, literally.
He held his beat-up old cap, so tight his knuckles were white. He stepped in like a man walking into a courtroom. I didn't offer him a seat. He didn't ask for one. He stood there for a minute, shifting from foot to foot. Finally, he said, "I didn't come here to waste your time." I waited. He looked down at the floor, then back at me. His voice broke a little when he spoke. I thought I knew everything. About family, about respect, about what made a good woman. Thought if a woman wasn't cooking or cleaning, she wasn't worth much. I see now. I was just scared. I raised my eyebrows. I didn't say anything. I wanted to hear it all. Scared I wasn't needed. Scared the world was leaving men like me behind. Took it out on you. Another pause. I was wrong. The words hung there.
Heavy.
I hurt you. I know that. And I'm sorry. He said it like it hurt to pull the words out, like he was ripping them from somewhere deep inside. But he said them.
Real. Raw. No excuses.
No, but you. I sat back, arms crossed. You didn't just hurt me, I said finally. You taught Adam it was okay to laugh when someone disrespected me. That hit him harder than anything else. He closed his eyes for a second, nodded. I'm sorry for that too, he said. He learned it from me. Learned wrong. I let the silence stretch. Made him sit in it. Finally, I said, it's not my job to fix that for you. He nodded again. His eyes were glassy now.
I know, he said.
Voice barely a whisper. I'll be fixing it till the day I die. He turned to leave. But right before he walked out the door, he said one more thing. I'm proud you're part of this family, even if it took me too damn long to see it. Then he left.
No fanfare.
No drama. Just a worn-out old man finally facing the weight of everything he'd done. I sat there long after he was gone, feeling, I don't even know what. Not forgiveness. Not anger either. Something in between. Something heavy, but clean. But the story wasn't finished. Because when I went home that night, Adam was waiting. And the look on his face told me he had something to say too. And this time, it wasn't going to be easy to hear. I walked through the door, tired to my bones, just wanting a quiet night. But Adam was already standing in the kitchen, arms crossed.
No Xbox controller.
No half-done dinner waiting. Just him. Waiting. I knew that look. Something was coming. He didn't waste time. I talked to my mom, he said. I set my bag down. Stayed quiet. She told me Dad came to see you. Said he apologized. I nodded once.
He did.
Adam looked like he wanted to say something quick, easy. Like, good, now everything's fine. But he didn't. Instead, he dropped his arms and rubbed his face like he was scrubbing off guilt. I've been thinking, he said. Voice low, rough. About that night. About a lot of nights. I said nothing. Let him sit in it, like Earl had. Adam's voice cracked a little when he spoke again. I let you stand alone. Over and over. I should have defended you. Should have shut him down, not laughed along. He looked up at me, and for once, he wasn't smiling. Wasn't trying to charm his way out. I'm sorry. It wasn't enough. Not after everything. I shook my head slowly. You didn't just fail me once, Adam. You made it a pattern. Every time he talked down to me, you told me without words that I didn't matter enough. He flinched, but didn't argue. I know, he said. I know what I did. Or what I didn't do. I picked up the mail sitting on the counter. Flipped through it without really seeing it. You know, I said, voice calm, I spent 3 years trying to prove I was enough.
For you.
For your family. And I realized I was never the one who needed to prove anything. Adam's face crumpled. I don't want to lose you, he said, almost whispering. And there it was. The thing he never thought he'd have to say. Because he thought I would always be there. No matter what. I looked at him. Really looked at him, and realized something else. I didn't hate him. But I didn't trust him either. And love without trust isn't enough. I'm not making any decisions tonight, I said. But things are going to change around here. Starting with you actually listening when I speak. He nodded, swallowing hard. I'll do whatever it takes, he said. I believed he meant it. At least right then. But sometimes meaning it isn't enough. Sometimes the damage is too deep to patch over. And sometimes, the real revenge is choosing yourself. Choosing to stop cleaning up other people's messes. Choosing to leave the table when love is no longer being served. The next few weeks were cold and sharp between me and Adam. He tried, I'll give him that. He started helping around the house without being asked. He answered when I spoke instead of zoning out. He called out Earl once, too, when Earl made a lazy comment at a family cookout. It wasn't much, but it was different. Still, it didn't erase the years I spent standing alone while Adam stood by and watched. One night, I sat on our bed, staring at a half-packed suitcase. Not because I wanted drama, not because I hated him, but because I loved myself more now than I ever had before. Adam came in, stopped dead when he saw it. He sat down across from me, knees brushing mine. "You're leaving," he said. Quiet.
Flat.
I nodded. For now. Tears filled his eyes. "I can change." "I know you can," I said. "But you should have cared enough to change then, when it mattered." He buried his face in his hands. For once, there was no argument. No begging. Just silence. The night I left, I didn't slam the door. I didn't make a scene. I packed my things, kissed the dog on the head, and walked out. I moved into a small apartment near campus. It was old, drafty, and the water heater sounded like a dying whale, but it was mine. My space. My rules. A few months later, I got the divorce papers ready. Simple.
Clean.
No screaming matches.
No dirty tricks.
When Adam got the papers, he called once. Left a voicemail. "I don't blame you," he said. Voice raw. "You deserved better." He was right. I did. Earl tried reaching out too. A letter in the mail. 3 pages of apologies, regrets, prayers. I read it once and put it in a drawer. Maybe I'll look at it again someday. Maybe I won't. It's been over a year now. I teach my classes. I drink my coffee slow in the mornings. I decorate my little place exactly how I want. No one sighs if I leave papers on the kitchen table. No one mocks my dreams. No one chuckles when I'm being disrespected. Sometimes people ask me if I miss them. Adam, the family gatherings, the easy way things looked from the outside. I always answer the same way. I miss who I thought they could be, not who they really were. The truth is, I don't need to serve dinner to people who don't respect me. I don't need to teach dignity to men who refuse to learn. I don't need to stand quietly while someone cuts me down to size to make themselves feel bigger. Not anymore. Final image. Me. Standing at the front of a new lecture hall, sun shining through the windows. Smiling. Stronger. Whole. And the empty seat in the front row? It stays empty. Right where it belongs.
The end.